Do you have a thirst to learn about wine? Do you love stories about wonderfully obsessive people, hauntingly beautiful places, and amusingly awkward social situations? Well, that's the blend here on the Unreserved Wine Talk podcast. I'm your host, Natalie McLean, and each week I share with you unfiltered conversations with celebrities in the wine world, as well as confessions from my own tipsy journey as I write my third book on this subject. I'm so glad you're here. Now pass me that bottle, please, and let's get started. Welcome to episode 6. I am so excited because today we're going to have a secret book club reading of some of the juiciest bits of my first book, Red, White, and Drunk All Over, a wine-soaked journey from grape to glass, which was named one of the best books of the year by the Globe and Mail, New York Times, and Amazon. Yay! Now, before we get started, I'd like to give Toronto Lois a shout out for her review on Apple Podcasts. Quote, Natalie's first new podcast is an eye-opener for those who are serious wine collectors. I'm looking forward to future podcasts. For those wanting to learn more about what to drink, Natalie offers online courses in wine tasting and wine and cheese pairings. Take the opportunity to listen to Red, White, and Drunk All Over now as an audiobook. Natalie will become your resource to everything about wine. Didn't know drinking wine could be more enjoyable, but Natalie has really uncorked a new bottle for me. Well, thank you, Lois. And yes, Lois is a student of my online wine courses that you can find at nataliemclean.com/courses. She, of course, will be getting an A+ for that review. Seriously, I really appreciate your support, Lois, and I'm so glad that you're part of our wine community. I love, love, love chatting with you in our private Facebook group for course members. So if you review this podcast and want me to mention your website or social media handle, please include that in your review. I want to celebrate you and let others know where they can connect with you online. Thanks to you, this podcast has been holding steady for the past few weeks on the top 10 chart for food and drink podcasts, on Apple hovering between number 2 and number 3, behind America's Test Kitchen podcast and Jamie Oliver's podcast. Your ears, my liver, we are a great team. Now, back to this episode. Let's get comfy, shall we, in our imaginary chairs for this virtual book club reading. Mine's a plush burgundy velvet with big sinking cushions and very wide armrests. What's your chair? The total length of Red, White, and Drunk All Over, RWD, audiobook is almost 12 hours, so we're going to choose just a few of the juicy bits. If you want the whole enchilada, you'll find it on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes, now called Apple Books. I'll also include links to it in the show notes for this episode at nataliemclean.com/6. So I'm going to start with a snippet on how I became a wine lover. Perhaps you too have that first wine that started it all. I remember the night I tasted my first good wine. My future husband Andrew and I had just graduated from the MBA program at the University of Western Ontario and were enjoying our wealth relative to our student days. We dined out a lot, and our favorite place was a small Italian restaurant around the corner from our apartment in Toronto. The first time we went there, the owner, a tall, burly man with fierce, dark eyes, asked us if we'd like to try the Brunello. We thought at first it was a regional dish, but it turned out to be a red wine from central Italy. We were relieved not to have to tackle the wine list. Neither of us knew much more about wine than which fluffy animals on the label we liked best. When the owner opened the bottle tableside, the pop of that cork seemed to pierce something inside me and relieve a little pressure. He poured the Brunello, a rich robe of mahogany into 2 tumblers with none of the pretentious sniffing and approval ceremony. "Cimmo," he said, and bustled off. As I raised the glass to my lips, I stopped. The aroma of the wine rushed out to meet me, and all the smells I had ever known fell away. I didn't know how to describe it, but I knew how it made me feel. I moistened my lips with the wine and drank it slowly, letting it coat my tongue and slide from one side of my mouth to the other. The Brunello trickled down my throat and out along 1,000 fault lines through my body, dissolving them. My second glass tasted like a sigh at the end of a long day, a gathering in and a letting go. I felt the fingers of alcoholic warmth relax the muscles at the back of my jaw and curl under my ears. The wine flushed warmth up into my cheeks, down through my shoulders, and across my thighs. My mind was as calm as a black ocean. The wine gently stirred the silt of memories along the bottom, helping me recall childhood moments of wordless abandon. Andrew's eyes had softened, and we talked with the wonder of unexpected abundance about our lives together, our career goals, our hope for a family. The pasta seemed unnecessary next to this wonderful wine. To paraphrase Robert Frost, our conversation glided on its own melting as we moved from delight to wisdom. Now, by the time we were on our second bottle, I started to feel so flammable that I wondered if I were violating the building's fire code. When we finally got up to leave, we realized that the restaurant was empty. We said goodnight to the owner, and he slapped Andrew on the back as if he were choking on a breadstick. That was the first of many happy evenings there, and we drank that Brunello for a year. A pilot light had been ignited inside me, and over time, it would grow into the flames of a full-blown passion. I used to joke that I started drinking seriously when I met Andrew, who is now my ex-husband, and so no, that wasn't a reason to stop. However, my earliest experiences with wine should have driven me into the frothy embrace of beer forever. Growing up in Nova Scotia in the 1980s, I'd be given one undrinkable glass of wine to toast the New Year and another at Easter, usually from the same box. During the rest of the year, my Scottish family knocked back beer and whiskey. My teen drinking began and ended at the same high school dance, behind the utility shed where all the illicit activities took place. I chugged half a bottle of syrupy sparkling wine. Not only did it taste wretched, but it also made me spend the next day in the vice grip of a searing, sugar withdrawal headache. After this, there were family celebrations. At a cousin's wedding, I drank their homemade wine, Tanya and Ronnie's True Love Forever, Chablis. I hoped that the marriage would age better than that wine. In the years that have passed since we discovered that Brunello, the taste of wine has helped me to store many memories. I remember one particular bottle because of the weather. Andrew and I were snug inside a rented cabin as rain battered the roof, dripped down the chimney, and hissed on the fire. Thunder rolled overhead as the windows rattled. The wind whipped across the lake in angry gusts, as if hurling itself at our cabin. The smoky aromas of that Rhone Valley Syrah wrapped around my head and filled my body. The storm outside made the calm pleasure of the wine deeper, more sensual. As long as my glass was full, I wanted it to rage for years. Even when I'm drinking alone, my mind will still clink with past toasts, glasses drained, fond farewells. Some wines will always taste like a lost argument or a long embrace. I think many of us have a secret cellar in our minds where we collect our empty bottles filled with memories. All right, so next up is my visit with one of Burgundy's best winemakers, Lalou Bize-Laroy, who is known as La Tigresse for her sharp opinions and her former tempestuous tenure at Domaine Romanée-Conti, just down the road from her own winery. It's considered one of the world's greatest wines, and I had just finished a visit with the winemaker there, Aubert de Villaine. At a Chapters bookstore reading, someone commented, "Wow, you're able to get into all these wineries that aren't even open to the public." So I'll share with you what I said to him then. These superstars of the wine world allow me into their wineries and their homes, not because of me, but because of you. They want to reach you through me. I am the readers I represent, and I never forget that. All right, so here we go. I'm more than un peu nervous about meeting a woman who seems to thrive on confrontation. My heart pounds as I drive past her iron gate and into the white gravel courtyard in front of a long white house. Taking one deep breath to calm my nerves before ringing the bell, I hear small dogs yapping inside. Bonjour! Bize-Laroy is all charm as she opens the door. I've read enough to know that her dogs, a black poodle named Inez and a mixed breed called Basile, are her babies, and I should greet them warmly. I give them my best "aren't they cute" smile, even though I usually avoid anything on four legs. Inez growls back at me. Bize-Laroy is a woman painted by a miniaturist, barely 5 feet tall with fine features. You must look closely to catch a mischievously arched eyebrow, but there's no missing the caged ferocity in her eyes. While I didn't expect her to be in muddy overalls, I also didn't anticipate the chic haute couture, black designer pants, and a sweater with high-heeled black boots. Her light brown hair is pulled back in a ponytail, accented with girlish bangs. Her fit, wiry body is a testament to her love of mountain climbing. Just 4 years ago, she climbed Mount Blanc. It's hard to believe she's 73. Her office, just off the kitchen, has only a simple wooden table stacked with neat piles of papers. On the wall are photographs of her at tastings. Inez sits at my feet, staring up at me unnervingly from under bushy black eyebrows. Basile curls up on the window ledge and watches us. We start by discussing her philosophy of winemaking with an uneasy mix of franglais and hand gestures. She's a strong advocate of biodynamic viticulture, which she adopted in 1988. Très controversiel, she declares, adding her mantra, respectez la terre, respectez la terre. Just 2% of Burgundian vineyards are biodynamic. The approach is more labor-intensive and about 10% more costly than non-biodynamic viticulture. We walk over to the winery where she shows me the sorting room. Its wall bears a large glass case with a circular zodiac made of colorful stones. At harvest time, the workers pick through the grapes here, throwing out anything less than perfectly ripe. In the fermentation room, Bize-Laroy explains that the large wood vats infuse the wine with the circular energy of the cosmos. I nod in agreement, which seems to be the safest thing to do. I hate technology. It produces fake wines, she says with the same disgust my 6th grade teacher had for dangling participles. If Chablis tastes like Chardonnay, then it's no good. She claims that biodynamic preparations increase the vineyard's life force and, as a result, strengthen the plant's vitality to naturally fight disease and pests. However, mixtures such as stinging nettle tea and cow's dung buried during the equinox sound less like viticulture and more like stage directions for Macbeth's witches. Many vintners start with biodynamics, but they do not stick with it long enough, she says as we walk back to her office. She pauses for me to copy down every word. The earth responds slowly. You must go to the end of what you think. Having an idea is not enough. Are you ready to love the vines and the soil? Are you ready to work hard? She exhorts me like a Venus Tony Robbins at a motivational conference. Yes, I'm ready to love the soil. Yes, I'll work hard, I want to respond as we walk into our kitchen. Wine is the inspiration of the cosmos, Bisleroy says, offering me her Nuit Saint-Georges. It's a fine red burgundy, and it enters the mouth like a peacock's tail, narrowly at first, then fanning out unexpectedly across your tongue with flashy aromas of raspberries, leather, sandalwood, smoke, burning autumn leaves, and earthy truffles. This particular one wants to play coy with me before filling my pleasure center. The wine's suppleness feels as though unseen hands pull a velvet dress over my head and down over my breasts and hips until the hem brushes my thighs. By now, my tasting notes have become contented purring noises. Bisleroy asks me what I think of it. I know what my hawk-eyed teacher wants to hear, but straight-up sycophancy is worthless. Instead, playing for time, I ask her how long the wine should be cellared. I know that Burgundy is usually ready to drink earlier than Bordeaux, having less tannin to smooth out. But should that be 5 years? 10? 20? Her face darkens. Who knows? She snaps. Certainly the critics don't. How can they predict when to drink my wine when even I can't? They're making it up. C'est terrible. And their descriptions, filled with every silly berry on the planet. We both shake our heads grimly over the stupidity of wine writers. They should write about how they feel, what's going on inside them when they drink the wine, she says. That would be much more helpful and interesting and more truthful. And so it went, my bizarrely fascinating chat with the wine world's Miss Havisham. Now a final snippet for you from the chapter called Undercover Sommelier, for which I worked as a sommelier in a 5-diamond restaurant in Quebec. I'm a big advocate of doing the thing I'm writing about, a day-in-the-life approach to get better, deeper insights than I would just interviewing someone about being a sommelier. Plus, this is how you get a story infused with emotion, rather than a dry travelogue of people, places, and facts. As humans, we are built for storytelling. That's why I also picked grapes for the harvest with the brilliant and wacky California winemaker Randall Graham of Bonnie Doon Winery, and worked in a busy high-tech wine boutique in New York City. So here we go. Unless you count the time I handed out plates at a church supper, I've never really worked as a waiter. But of course, that hasn't stopped me from commenting on the service in restaurants, particularly the wine service, as if I knew exactly what I was talking about. So now, to stopper my leaking credibility, I've decided to work in a restaurant for a night. Only the best would do, so I selected Le Baccarat, an award-winning restaurant that offers haute French cuisine with classic service. That would be just perfect for me, I thought. Until I realized that as a server, I would have to deliver the classic service rather than receive it. I'd be working with the restaurant's sommelier, Danielle Dupont. Her job is a wine lover's dream. She spends barrels of somebody else's money to buy and taste the best wines in the world managing an inventory of 17,000 bottles. We head to her office before the restaurant opens, where she sits at her computer to delete out-of-stock wines and add the new ones. "You're familiar with these wines and can talk about them with the guests?" she asks, pointing to the list. I swallow. The notion that I can talk intelligently about some 450 different wines is absurd. "No problem," I say. It's showtime. DuPont straightens the bow tie of her tailored tuxedo. I'm wearing a starched white shirt and a black suit, an ensemble that looks as though it came from the 2008 Fall Undertaker collection. We all meet in the kitchen, chef, maitre d', sommelier, servers, to review tonight's specials. Sommeliers have to know the menu at least as well as the waiters do, since they must decide which wines best match the food. DuPont reviews the wines by the glass, and some servers ask questions. It's going to be a busy night, the maitre d' tells us. The restaurant is fully booked. Then it's over. Thankfully, there's no group hug, but we all do wish each other good service, and I am reminded of the ancient Roman soldiers and their chant, "Strength and honor," before battle. For the first hour or so, I'm just trailing DuPont. This is like being a passenger in a Mercedes on a country drive. The ride is so smooth, and you're caught up with admiring the scenery, that you really don't pay attention to how the driver negotiates the curves in the road. To watch DuPont in action is to believe that some people are just born with effortless grace. She deftly handles tired tourists, flirting businessmen, she gold-draped women, and nervous dating couples. As we move away to the side of the room, I notice that DuPont constantly monitors all 25 tables without being obvious about it. I'm trying to learn the art of invisible service, but so far only have mastered arranging myself like a tall ornamental shrub. It's 8 p.m. now, the time appointed for me to flap my tiny wings. DuPont gives me a firm motherly nudge. "Be confident. You are the sommelier," she whispers. Ugh. Wishing I had downed some liquid courage, I approach my diners. The foursome, two big burly fellows with their equally stout female companions, are sitting at a table beside the window. One of the men has the wine list, but his back is to me. I'd have to be Spider-Woman crawling down the wall beside him to get to his right, the traditional side for serving customers. What to do? Then I recall DuPont's advice. Try not to frighten the customers by suddenly looming up and over their shoulders. I know I don't like it when sommeliers hover over me as I decide on the wine. I can't imagine a scowling chef standing beside me as I hesitate between the scallops and the steak. I approach him from the left. Fortunately, this man knows what he wants. A big Bordeaux, a 1982 Chateau Talbot at $800. Ka-ching! As I bring out the larger stemware on a silver tray, I wonder when that tremor developed. The liteau, a white linen napkin, is draped over my right forearm for classic French service. I'm afraid it's going to drag all the cutlery and dishware on the table with it as I swoop in to set the glasses in front of the diners. But somehow I place them, even though they wobble like tops before stabilizing. Next, I present the bottle to Mr. Big Bordeaux. He nods curtly. I take it to one of those handy pedestals to open it, but realize I've got a toughie after all. Red wines here are brought from the cellar lying down in wire baskets so that the bitter sediment at the bottom doesn't mix in with the wine. It's tricky getting the bottle out of the basket to pour it without tilting it upright or dribbling the wine. Red wine just seems to have a magnetic attraction to white linen tablecloths and shirts. I almost pour the man's sample into his water glass, but just in time manage to inch it over to his wine glass. He nods, so I make my way around the table, serving first the women, then the men. Finally, I return to the host and fill his glass to the 1/3 level that's considered ideal. The empty space allows drinkers to swirl the wine around and appreciate the aromas. I discover, though, that pouring wine while standing 3 feet above the glasses is vastly different from doing it sitting down. It's difficult to tell how much you filled them. I have an urge to check the levels by squatting down to the table height, like a golfer on a putting green. Well, I've nailed every pour and feel like a gymnast who dismounts from the parallel bars with a backflip and a perfect landing. I stand over the table like a beaming penguin, expecting the man to look up at me approvingly with a raised eyebrow and say, "Nice pour." But somehow, my virtuosity is lost on him. Not on DuPont, though, who has been watching carefully. Back at the bar, she has an appreciative smile and a warm word of praise for me. Also, a tip. You're tall, so you tend to bend over. If you put your left hand behind your back, you'll maintain a straight, clean line. Uh-oh, I think. First, the aerial basket extraction. Now I need one hand tied behind my back. What's next? A blindfold? But I try it with the next pour and realize that she's right. Next, I bring a California cult Cabernet to a blonde woman and her girlfriend. I pour a sample, then pour for the friend, then top up Blondie's glass. But as I pull back, my wrist twitches and I leave a telltale trail of crimson drips on the tablecloth. Oh, I'm so terribly sorry, I gasp. Blondie blinks slowly without looking at me and purses her lips. Sorry, I mouth again silently as though I'm in an underwater nightmare. The woman resumes talking to her friend, but in a hardened tone. I want to take her little made-up face in my hands and turn it toward mine and say, "Look, I'm really sorry. Please forgive me." For the first time, though, I realize what it's like to feel servile, dismissed. At least she doesn't call the maitre d'. My wound heals gradually as I serve other tables without incident, but naturally I am still absorbed in my own tragedy. I continue working the floor without any other major accidents until 11 p.m. As I collect the bills from some of the remaining diners, my feet feel as though they've been on a concrete treadmill for 34 hours. The connecting tendons in my hips are tightening with exhaustion. It strikes me that sommeliers are the gentle persuaders of the wine world. Not so much selling wine to the customer, but rather the customer to the customer. Their art is in convincing the customer she's worth treating herself to that special bottle. While this helps the bottom line, it's more about sharing a passion for wine. I may be spent, but DuPont looks as though she's just woken up refreshed from an afternoon nap. I ask her to fire me as a favor, and she laughs. "You've given good service tonight," she says kindly. "Go home, sleep well, and come back soon as a customer." So, you can continue our secret book reading with the complete audio edition of Red, White, and Drunk All Over. I'll link to it and to the wines mentioned in this podcast in the show notes, which you can find at nataliemaclean.com/6. Next week, we'll chat with Bianca Bosker, author of the New York Times bestseller Cork Dork, a wine-fueled adventure among the obsessive sommeliers, big bottle hunters, and rogue scientists who taught me to live for taste. Bianca has written about food, wine, architecture, and technology for the New Yorker Online, The Atlantic, and the Wall Street Journal. She's brilliant and funny. You'll love her. You can also listen back through past episodes, including a fascinating interview with Dr. Edward Miller last week on the health benefits and risks of drinking wine. If you like this podcast, please share it this week with one wine-loving friend. Just send them the URL, nataliemclain.com/podcast, or share it on social media. You can tag me on Twitter or Facebook at Natalie McClain. On Instagram, I'm at Natalie McClain Wine, or just use the hashtag Unreserved Wine Talk. I can't wait to share more personal wine stories with you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this. I hope something great is in your glass this week. Cheers. You don't want to miss one juicy episode of this podcast, especially the secret, full-bodied bonus episodes that I don't announce on social media. So subscribe for free now at nataliemclain.com/subscribe. Meet me here next week. Cheers.